Listen, they used to ask me how I walked into rooms and everyone turned their head, how I could stand before presidents and kings and never bow, how I could face a man who wanted to hurt me and make him doubt himself before the bell even rang. You think it was my fists? You think it was my speed? No, what you saw wasn't just a boxer. What you saw was a man who knew something most people spend their whole lives searching for. I'm about to tell you what nobody told me when I was coming up. I had to learn it in the ring, in the streets, standing alone against the government. And I'm going to share it with you right now, because you deserve to know. Your presence, what people call your aura, isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And I'm going to show you exactly how I built mine. Let me tell you what this conversation is really about. You're here because you want to know how to boost your aura, how to command respect, how to walk into any room and own it. But here's the truth nobody's telling you. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be bigger. You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. What you need is something deeper, something I learned fighting the hardest battles of my life, both inside the ring and outside of it. See, most people teaching you about presence and confidence are selling you a costume. They're telling you to fake it till you make it. Stand up straight. Make eye contact. Say affirmations in the mirror. And sure, maybe that works for 5 minutes. But the moment you face real pressure, a person who challenges you, a situation that tests you, a moment when you're all alone and nobody's watching, that costume falls right off. I'm not here to give you a costume. I'm here to give you a foundation. What I learned from my mama, from my faith, from standing up to the United States government when they wanted to send me to war, from losing everything and building it back, what I learned is that real presence comes from the inside out. It's not about what people see, it's about what you know. When you know who you are, when you know what you stand for, when you've done the work that most people aren't willing to do, that's when you stop trying to prove yourself. That's when you stop worrying about what other people think. That's when you walk different, talk different, breathe different. And people feel it. They don't know why, but they feel it. Right now, you might be walking into rooms and feeling invisible. You might be speaking up and nobody's listening. You might be working twice as hard as the person next to you and getting half the recognition. And you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Why don't they see me? But here's what I'm about to show you. You're not doing anything wrong. You just haven't been taught the right things. Nobody taught you how to build an unshakable foundation. Nobody taught you how to turn fear into fuel. Nobody taught you that your presence isn't about impressing people. It's about being so sure of yourself that other people feel safe around your certainty. In the time we have together, I'm going to walk you through 9 specific hacks, 9 principles that I lived by that will transform how you show up in the world. Some of them will surprise you, some of them will challenge you, and some of them will make you realize you've been doing it backwards your whole life. By the time we're done, you won't just feel more confident, you'll understand exactly why you feel confident. You'll have a blueprint, you'll have tools, and most importantly, you'll have truth. The same truth that carried me through the highest highs and the lowest lows of my life. So let's get into it. Let's talk about how to build an aura that doesn't just shine for a moment, but burns steady for a lifetime. Before I was the greatest, I was a kid who was afraid to get on an airplane. They don't put that in the highlight reels, do they? But it's true. When I won the Olympic gold medal in Rome, I was terrified the whole flight over. White knuckles, sweating, praying to God we wouldn't crash. Every bump, every sound, I thought we were going down. I kept thinking about my mama back home, wondering if I'd ever see her again. That's not the image people have of me, is it? They see the confident champion. But I'm telling you the truth because you need to hear it. I was scared, but here's what changed me. I realized fear wasn't the problem. Fear is natural. Fear keeps you alive. The problem was letting fear make my decisions for me. So I made a choice. Every time I got on a plane after that, I would say to myself, I'm afraid, and I'm doing it anyway. That's where presence begins, not in the absence of fear, but in the decision to move forward even when your hands are shaking. See, most people think brave people don't feel fear. That's a lie. Brave people feel fear just like everybody else. The difference is they don't let fear sit in the driver's seat. They feel it, they acknowledge it, and then they do what needs to be done anyway. Now, let me tell you about a time when I had to stand completely alone. In 1967, they called my name for the draft. Vietnam War. The government wanted me to go fight people I didn't even know. People who never called me names, people who never did anything to me. And everybody, my managers, my promoters, some of my own friends, told me to just go. It'll be easy, they said. You won't even see combat, you'll just do exhibitions. You'll box for the troops, you'll come home a hero. But I knew the truth. If I put on that uniform, I'd be telling every young black man in America to do the same thing. I'd be betraying everything I believed in. My faith taught me that I should not take another life unless it was in self-defense. My conscience told me this war was wrong, and I couldn't ignore that voice, no matter what it cost me. So I said no. I stood in front of those cameras and I said, I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. No Viet Cong ever called me a bad name. Why should I go fight them? You know what happened next? They stripped my title. They took my license to fight. They threatened me with prison. I lost millions of dollars. People who used to love me turned their backs on me. Letters came in calling me a traitor, a coward, a disgrace. For 3.5 years, I couldn't do the only thing I was born to do, fight. I was in my prime. The best years of my career, gone. And for a while, I didn't know if I'd ever get them back. But here's what I learned standing in that courtroom, standing alone while the whole world seemed to be against me. When you know you're right, when you've checked with God and checked with your conscience, nobody on earth can make you feel small. They can take your title, but they can't take your dignity. They can take your money, but they can't take your truth. And that's when I understood your aura isn't built when everybody loves you. It's built when you stand for something even when you're standing alone. See, it's easy to be confident when everyone's cheering for you. It's easy to have presence when you're on top. But who are you when they take everything away? Who are you when the crowd turns? That's when you find out what you're made of. And I found out that my strength didn't come from the championship belt. It came from knowing I did what was right, even when it hurt. Let me take you back even further. When I was 12 years old, there was a bully in my neighborhood named Corky Baker. He was bigger than me, meaner than me, and everybody was afraid of him, including me. This boy would walk down the street and kids would cross to the other side. He'd take your lunch money, push you around, and there wasn't nothing you could do about it because if you fought back, he'd hurt you bad. I lived in fear of this kid for months. Every time I saw him coming, my stomach would drop. I'd look for a way to avoid him. I'd take the long way home just so I wouldn't have to pass him on the corner. But one day, I decided I couldn't live in fear anymore. My trainer at the gym, a man named Joe Martin, saw what was happening. He pulled me aside and said, Cassius, and that was my name back then. He said, you can run from this boy for the rest of your life, or you can face him once and be done with it. And something in me snapped. I realized he was right. I was giving this bully all my power. I was letting him control my whole life. So I challenged Corky to a fight at the gym, a real fight. 3 rounds, gloves on, in front of everybody. The day of the fight came, and I was shaking so hard I thought my legs would give out. I remember standing in my corner of the ring, looking across at Corky, and thinking, what have I done? This boy is going to kill me. But when the bell rang, something happened. I moved. I threw jabs. I stayed out of his reach. Corky came out swinging, throwing big hard punches, but he couldn't catch me. I was faster, I was smarter, and most importantly, I had made the decision to fight. He was used to people running. He wasn't ready for somebody to stand up to him. By the second round, Corky was tired. He was frustrated. He kept swinging and missing, swinging and missing. And before the round was over, he said, this ain't fair, and he ran out of the ring and left the gym. I had won. I blackened his eye and bloodied his nose. But more important than that, I had faced my fear and gained the self-respect and self-confidence I needed to continue my boxing career. All my friends and kids from the neighborhood were jumping up and down, shouting, we're free, long live the king, we're free." That's when I realized that I didn't just fight Corky for myself, I fought him for the entire neighborhood. And it was a good feeling. After I beat Corky, he didn't pick on anybody anymore. And you know what's interesting? When I saw him again a few weeks later, he told me I was a good fighter and that I was going to go a long way. Then he shook my hand and walked off. Over the years, Corky and I kind of became friends. But years later, I found out that Corky died in a shootout with the police at a bar in Louisville. Corky Baker had still been fighting in the streets. And that taught me something important. Facing your fear once doesn't mean you're done. You have to keep choosing courage over and over again for the rest of your life. But that day you decide to step into your fear, the day you decide to show up even when you're terrified, that's the day you start building real presence. Now let me get into the 9 hacks I promised you. These are the principles that changed everything for me. And they'll change everything for you too, if you let them. The first hack is this: know who you are before the world tells you. Most people let the world define them. Your boss tells you you're not good enough, so you believe it. Your family tells you to play it safe, so you do. Society tells you to fit in, so you shrink yourself down to a size that makes other people comfortable. But I learned early, if you don't define yourself, somebody else will, and they'll define you based on what serves them, not what serves you. When I was growing up in Louisville, the world tried to tell me who I was. They had names for me. They had expectations. They had a box they wanted to put me in. And for a while, I almost believed them. I almost accepted that the world they created was the only world that existed. But then something happened. I started boxing. And in that gym, I realized I could be somebody different. I could create my own identity. I didn't have to accept what they told me I was. I could decide for myself. So, here's what you need to do. Spend time alone with yourself. Real time. Not scrolling through your phone, not distracting yourself with noise, just you and your thoughts. Ask yourself these questions. What do I believe in? What do I stand for? What am I willing to fight for, even if I'm standing alone? What matters to me more than comfort, more than approval, more than fitting in? Write it down. Say it out loud. Let it become so clear in your mind that when somebody tries to tell you who you are, you can smile and say, no, this is who I am. When you know who you are, you stop asking for permission, you stop waiting for validation, you stop looking for somebody to tell you you're good enough. You already know. And that changes everything. People can feel when you know yourself. They can sense it. It shows up in the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you hold your head. You're not performing. You're not pretending. You're just being. And that kind of authenticity is magnetic. The second hack is this: let your preparation speak louder than your words. Now, people think I was great because I talked. They remember the poetry, the predictions, the press conferences. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I shook up the world. I am the greatest. They remember all of that. But here's the truth. I could only talk that way because I worked that way. Before every fight, I ran until I thought I'd collapse. Then I ran some more. I hit the bag until my hands bled. I studied my opponent until I knew him better than he knew himself. I watched film. I analyzed every movement, every habit, every weakness. I prepared like my life depended on it, because in the ring, it did. The real conditioning started after the pain set in. That's when most people quit. That's when I kept going. I'd be running at 5 in the morning, and my legs would be screaming at me to stop. My lungs would be burning. Everything in me would want to walk back to the house and go to sleep. But that's when I'd say to myself, this is where champions are made. Not when it's easy, when it's hard, when nobody's watching, when you have to fight yourself just to keep moving. That's when you separate yourself from everybody else. And here's why that matters for your aura. People can feel preparation. They can sense when you've done the work. When you walk into a room and you know you've put in hours that nobody saw, you carry yourself different. You don't have to prove anything. Your preparation proves it for you. You don't have to convince anyone you're ready. You know you're ready. And that quiet confidence is more powerful than any words you could say. So here's what I want you to do. Whatever you're about to do, a meeting, a conversation, a presentation, a moment that matters, do the work that nobody sees. Prepare like your life depends on it. Study. Practice. Rehearse. Go over it in your mind until you can see it, feel it, know it. Don't just show up hoping you'll figure it out. Show up knowing you've already figured it out. Because when you do, you won't have to fake confidence. You'll have earned it. And earned confidence is the kind that never breaks. The third hack is this: build your faith like a muscle. People ask me all the time, how did you stay so confident? How did you never seem to break, even when the whole world was against you? The answer is simple. I had something bigger than myself to believe in. My faith in God wasn't just something I talked about on Sundays. It wasn't just something I pulled out when I was in trouble. It was the foundation of everything. It was there when I woke up. It was there when I trained. It was there when I fought. It was there when I was alone in the dark, wondering if I made the right choice. When I prayed, I wasn't asking God to make me great. I was thanking Him for making me. I was submitting to something bigger than my ego, bigger than my fears, bigger than my circumstances. And here's what that did for my presence. When you know you're connected to something infinite, nothing finite can break you. Not insults, not threats, not failure, nothing. Because your value doesn't come from what people think of you, it comes from who created you. And nobody can take that away. I remember when they took my title, when they banned me from boxing, when I lost everything I'd worked for. I could have gotten bitter. I could have gotten angry at God. I could have said, why is this happening to me? But instead, I got closer to Him. I prayed more. I studied more. I spent hours reading the Quran, trying to understand what He wanted from me. And you know what I found? Peace. In the middle of the storm, I found peace because I knew that God was with me. I knew that if I stayed true to my beliefs, He would take care of the rest. And He did. 3.5 years later, the Supreme Court overturned my conviction. I got my license back. I got back in the ring. And I proved to the world that they couldn't break me. But more important than that, I proved to myself that when you have faith, you have everything. So here's what I want you to do. Whatever you believe in, God, the universe, a higher purpose, connect to it every single day. Don't just pray when you're in trouble. Pray when things are good. Pray when you wake up. Pray when you go to sleep. Sit in silence. Breathe. Meditate. Let yourself feel that you're part of something bigger. Because when you do, you stop shrinking in the face of small people and small situations. You start moving with the confidence of someone who knows they're not alone. You start carrying yourself like you've got the creator of the universe on your side. And when you have that kind of faith, nothing in this world can shake you. Not criticism, not rejection, not failure, nothing. You become unmovable. And people feel that strength. They're drawn to it. They respect it. Even if they don't understand it, they feel it. The fourth hack is this: control your inner dialogue. You know what most people don't realize? You talk to yourself more than anyone else talks to you. All day long, there's a voice in your head. And what that voice says to you becomes your reality. I used to say, I am the greatest, over and over and over. People thought I was arrogant. They thought I was full of myself, but I wasn't talking to them. I was talking to me. I was programming my mind. I was building belief. See, your brain believes what you tell it most. If you keep saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready, I'm not smart enough, I'm not strong enough, your brain says, okay, you're right. Let me show you all the evidence that proves you're not good enough. But if you start saying, I am capable, I am prepared, I am strong, I am enough, your brain starts looking for proof that you're right. It starts showing you all the ways you are capable, all the times you succeeded. This isn't about lying to yourself. This isn't about pretending you're perfect when you're not. This is about speaking truth over yourself before the world speaks lies. This is about being your own biggest supporter instead of your own biggest critic. Most people are so hard on themselves. They beat themselves up over every mistake. They replay their failures over and over. They tell themselves they're not good enough, and then they wonder why they feel so small. But I did the opposite. Even when I lost a fight, I didn't tear myself down. I learned from it, and then I reminded myself who I was. I told myself, you're still the greatest. You had a bad night, but that doesn't change who you are. You'll come back stronger. And I believed it. And because I believed it, I made it true. So here's what you need to do. Pay attention to what you say to yourself. When you catch yourself talking down to yourself, stop. Right there in the moment. Stop. Replace that thought with truth. Say it out loud if you have to. Say, I am capable. I am worthy. I am enough. I am strong. I am growing. I am learning. Say it until you believe it. Say it every morning when you wake up. Say it every night before you go to sleep. Say it when you're scared. Say it when you're tired. Say it when you don't feel like it. Because the person you become starts with the person you tell yourself you are. Change your inner dialogue and you change your life. It's that simple. And it's that powerful. The fifth hack might sound simple, but listen close. Dress like you respect yourself. How you show up on the outside affects how you feel on the inside. When I stepped into the ring, I didn't just throw on any shorts. I wore custom robes. I looked sharp. I moved like a champion before I even threw a punch. Why? Because when you treat yourself like somebody important, you start to believe you're somebody important. And when you believe it, everyone else feels it too. This isn't about money. This isn't about expensive clothes. This is about intention. This is about looking in the mirror and saying, I respect the person looking back at me. When you take care of your appearance, when you put thought into how you present yourself, you're sending yourself a message. You're saying, I matter. I'm worth the effort. I deserve to look good and feel good. And that message goes deep. It changes the way you walk. It changes the way you carry yourself. It changes how you feel when you walk into a room. I've seen people transform just by taking care of themselves. A man gets a fresh haircut and a clean shirt, and suddenly he's standing taller. A woman puts on something that makes her feel beautiful, and suddenly she's talking with more confidence. It's not about vanity. It's about self-respect. When you honor yourself, people feel it, and they start honoring you too. So, take care of your appearance. Stand up straight. Fix your posture. Wear clothes that make you feel proud, even if nobody else sees you that day. Groom yourself with intention. Not because you're trying to impress anybody else, but because you're honoring yourself. The sixth hack is this: walk into every room like you belong there. I walked into rooms with presidents, kings, and world leaders. I met people who had more money than I could imagine, more power than I could comprehend, and I never once felt small. You know why? Because I decided before I walked through the door that I belonged there. Most people walk into a room looking for approval, looking for permission, hoping somebody validates them, hoping somebody notices them and tells them they're good enough to be there. But here's the secret. Nobody's going to give you permission to be great. You have to give it to yourself. You have to decide that you belong before you walk in. You have to know that you have just as much right to be there as anybody else. Not because you're better than them, but because you're equal to them. You're a human being made by the same God who made them. Your voice matters just as much. Your presence matters just as much. You don't have to shrink to make other people comfortable. So here's what I want you to do. Before you walk into any situation, any room, any moment that matters, take a breath. Remind yourself that you belong there. Say it to yourself if you have to. I belong here. I have a right to be here. I'm not asking for permission. I'm not hoping to be seen. I'm here because I deserve to be here. And when you walk in with that energy, people respond. They make space for you. They listen when you speak, not because you demanded it, but because you decided it before you even walked through the door. Presence isn't given to you. The seventh hack might surprise you. Serve something bigger than yourself. Here's a truth that took me years to understand. The most powerful presence isn't selfish, it's in service. When I fought, I wasn't just fighting for me. I was fighting for every black kid who was told he couldn't be great. I was fighting for every person who felt invisible, who felt like the world didn't see them, who felt like they didn't matter. I was fighting for a purpose bigger than a belt or a title or money. And that gave me strength that nobody could break. Because when you're serving something bigger than yourself, you stop worrying about looking good. You stop worrying about what people think. You're too focused on the mission to be distracted by the noise. You're too focused on helping others to be worried about your own fears. When I stood up to the government, I wasn't thinking about my career. I was thinking about all those young men who would have to go to war if I didn't take a stand. I was thinking about my faith. I was thinking about doing what was right, even if it cost me everything. And here's what happens when you serve something bigger than yourself. People feel it. They know when you're in it for yourself, and they know when you're in it for something greater. And when they see that you're fighting for them, for a cause, for a purpose, they follow you, they support you, they believe in you, because you're not just building yourself up, you're lifting others up too. So find a purpose bigger than yourself. It could be your family, your community, your faith, your people. It could be a cause you believe in, a change you want to see in the world. But find something where your success means something to someone other than you. Find something where your fight helps others fight too. Because when you fight for others, you find strength you didn't know you had. You find courage that comes from knowing you're not alone. You find a presence that's rooted in love, not ego. And people feel that. They're drawn to it. They follow it. They remember it. Because the strongest leaders aren't the ones who lift themselves up. They're the ones who lift everybody else up with them. The eighth hack is this: embrace your humanity and don't hide it. People think great presence means you never show weakness, that you're always strong, always perfect, always on. But that's not true. Real presence comes from being real. I cried, I doubted myself, I made mistakes, I hurt people I loved, and I had to ask for forgiveness. I wasn't perfect. I was human. I had fears. I had insecurities. There were nights when I questioned everything. Nights when I wondered if I made the right choice. Nights when I felt alone and scared and unsure of the future. And when I stopped pretending to be perfect, that's when people really connected with me. Because they saw themselves in my struggle. They saw that I wasn't some untouchable figure. I was a man trying his best, just like them. I was fighting my own battles, just like them. I was trying to figure it out, just like them. And that made me more relatable. That made me more real. That made people trust me. Because they knew I wasn't hiding behind a mask. I wasn't pretending to have it all together. I was showing up as I was, flaws and all. One of the hardest things I ever did was admit I was wrong about Malcolm X. Malcolm was my friend, he was my brother, he was the one who introduced me to the Nation of Islam. And when the leadership told me to turn my back on him, I did. I made that choice, and it's one of the biggest regrets of my life. Turning my back on Malcolm was one of the mistakes I regret most. I wish I could have told him I was sorry, that he was right about so many things, but he was killed before I got the chance. And I had to live with that. I had to carry that pain, but I also had to be honest about it. I had to admit that I made a mistake. I had to show that even when you're trying to do what's right, sometimes you get it wrong. And that's okay. That's human. What matters is that you learn from it, you grow from it, and you don't hide from it. So stop pretending you have it all together. Stop hiding your humanity. Be honest about your struggles. Be open about your fears. When you do that, you don't lose respect, you gain it. Because people trust authenticity. They follow vulnerability. They respect someone who's brave enough to be real. The ninth and final hack is this: leave every person better than you found them. Real presence isn't about making people feel small so you can feel big. It's about lifting people up. When I met someone, I tried to leave them with something. A smile, a word of encouragement, a moment where they felt seen. I didn't walk past people like they were invisible. I stopped. I listened. I treated everyone, from the janitor to the president, with respect and dignity. Because everybody matters. Everybody has value. Everybody deserves to be treated like they're somebody. And you know what happened? People remembered me. Not just because I was famous, but because I made them feel like they mattered. I made them feel like they were important. I made them feel seen, and that's the kind of presence that lasts. That's the kind of presence that changes lives. That's the kind of presence that people carry with them long after you're gone. So make it your mission to leave every person better than you found them. Smile at strangers. Encourage someone who's struggling. Listen when people talk. Really listen, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but genuinely hearing what they're saying. Be present. Give people your attention. Make them feel like they're the only person in the room when you're talking to them, because the strongest aura isn't the one that demands attention. It's the one that gives light to others. It's the one that makes other people shine brighter just by being around you. When you do that, when you make it about others instead of yourself, you become unforgettable. Not because you forced yourself on people, but because you gave them something they needed. Love, respect, dignity, connection. Now let me give you some practices you can start doing today. These aren't just ideas. These are things I want you to actually do. Every single morning, before you do anything else, I want you to look yourself in the mirror and say this out loud. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I am not what the world says I am. I am who God made me to be. Today, I will walk with dignity, I will speak with confidence, I will stand for truth, and I will not shrink for anyone. Say it even if you don't believe it yet. Say it until your mind catches up with your words. This is how you reprogram your brain. This is how you start every day as the person you're becoming. Before any important moment, a meeting, a conversation, a moment where you need to show up strong, take 5 minutes to prepare. Not just mentally, but spiritually. Breathe. Pray. Visualize yourself walking into that moment with confidence. See yourself speaking clearly, standing tall, handling every challenge with grace. Run through what you're going to say. Imagine how you're going to carry yourself. Do the work nobody sees, because when you do, you'll walk in with the quiet confidence of someone who's already won in their mind. At the end of every day, take 2 minutes to think about what you're grateful for. Not just the big things, the small things too. The breath in your lungs, the roof over your head, the people who love you, the fact that you made it through another day. Why does this matter for your presence? Because gratitude keeps you grounded. It keeps you from getting arrogant. It reminds you that everything you have is a gift. And when you walk with gratitude, people feel it. You stop trying to prove yourself, and you start appreciating yourself. And that changes your entire energy. Once a day, do something for someone else without expecting anything in return. Help someone carry their groceries. Give someone a genuine compliment. Listen to someone who needs to be heard. Hold the door. Smile at a stranger. Do something kind just because you can. This practice does two things. First, it shifts your focus from yourself to others. And second, it builds the kind of presence that people are drawn to. The presence of someone who makes others feel valued. Once a week, do something that scares you. Not something dangerous, just something outside your comfort zone. Speak up in a meeting. Introduce yourself to someone new. Take a risk you've been avoiding. Have a conversation you've been putting off. Every time you step into fear and do it anyway, you're building your presence. You're proving to yourself that fear doesn't control you. And every time you prove that to yourself, you become a little bit stronger, a little bit bolder, a little bit more magnetic. And once a week, spend an hour in complete silence. No phone, no music, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. Ask yourself, am I living in alignment with who I say I am? Am I standing for what I believe in? Am I becoming the person I want to be? This reflection keeps you honest, it keeps you growing, and it keeps your presence rooted in truth, not performance. Listen, we've covered a lot today. 9 hacks, stories from my life, lessons I learned in the ring and out of it, practices you can start right now. But before you go, I need you to understand something. Presence isn't about being perfect. It's not about never feeling afraid, never making mistakes, never doubting yourself. Presence is about knowing who you are and standing in that truth no matter what comes your way. I wasn't born confident. I was born scared. I was born small in a big world that tried to make me even smaller. But I made a choice. I chose to believe in myself before anybody else believed in me. I chose to stand for truth even when it cost me everything. I chose to serve something bigger than my ego. And slowly, brick by brick, I built the kind of presence that changed my life. You can do the same thing. I don't care where you're starting from. I don't care how invisible you feel right now. I don't care how many times you've been knocked down or counted out. You have everything you need inside of you right now to start building the kind of presence that commands respect, opens doors, and changes lives. But here's the key. You have to do the work. You have to decide who you are before the world tells you. You have to prepare when nobody's watching. You have to connect with something bigger than yourself. You have to control your inner dialogue. You have to show up with intention. You have to serve others. You have to be real. And you have to leave people better than you found them. Do those things consistently, day after day, and I promise you, your aura will change. People will feel you before you even speak. Opportunities will start appearing. Respect will follow you into every room, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. I'm going to leave you with this. The greatest victory I ever had wasn't in the ring. It was the day I realized that my worth didn't come from what other people thought of me. It came from what God made me and what I chose to stand for. Your worth doesn't come from titles or money or approval. It comes from the strength of your character, the depth of your faith, and the truth you're willing to stand for. So go build your presence, not for the applause, not for the recognition, but because you deserve to walk through this life with your head held high, knowing that you are somebody. You matter, you belong. And if this helped you, if something I said resonated with your spirit, do me a favor, Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Leave a like if this spoke to your heart, and drop a comment telling me which of these 9 hacks hit you the hardest. I want to hear your story. I want to know what you're going to do differently starting today. Now go, step into your greatness, and remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to stand up and fight for who you're becoming. God bless you. Peace.